Sometimes what feels like anxiety or overthinking isn't really starting from thoughts themselves. It starts from where your attention goes. And that matters more than it sounds at first. Because when your attention turns inward toward your thoughts, your feelings, or bodily sensations, something important changes. Your internal experience becomes stronger, but at the same time, your ability to process and manage it starts to shrink. Because your attention has limits, it can only handle so much at once, and that combination creates a problem. You become more aware of what's happening inside you, but less able to deal with it. And here's the key point. When that gap appears, the mind doesn't ignore it, it tries to fix it. So your mind tries to regulate what's happening internally through monitoring, analysis, suppression, or avoidance. But here's where things get tricky. Those strategies don't fully resolve what triggered them. Instead, they often reinforce the sense that something is wrong and needs to be managed even more closely. And over time, something important starts to form. A self-reinforcing cycle where how you pay attention, how you interpret things, and how you respond all start reinforcing each other. So what I want to do here today is break that process down for you step by step. I'm going to walk you through how attention turns inward, why that makes your experience stronger but harder to manage, and how that can lock you into a pattern that keeps anxiety or overthinking going on. So you can actually see how attention, how beliefs, internal reactions, they all lock together in a way that maintains your emotional distress. By the way, if you want to support my channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. It really helps. So at the center of all this is self-focused attention. We've been talking about this. It's the ability to direct your attention inwards to your thoughts and emotions. At first, it doesn't sound like a problem. In fact, it's necessary if you're going to make any corrections in yourself. But here's what's happening inside of you. Your mind is constantly comparing how you are right now to internal standards, your own ideas about how you should be thinking, feeling, or behaving. And whenever there's a gap between how you are now and that standard, your mind reacts. It tries to correct it through thinking, through emotional responses, or behavior. But this changes when your self-focus becomes too intense or inflexible. And when that happens, two things shift at the same time. First, your internal events become amplified. Your emotions feel more vivid, and your thoughts become more intrusive. And even physical sensations stand out more. And second, your mental capacity shrinks. So now you have more internal activity, but less ability to handle it. And that imbalance changes how the mind responds. Instead of flexible, deliberate coping, you start relying more on immediate reactions, avoiding things, pulling back, trying to suppress and control what you're experiencing. And notice what happens here. These responses don't actually resolve that original gap. So the mind keeps trying. And at the same time, these strategies start reinforcing certain beliefs, especially beliefs about not being in control, being vulnerable, or needing to closely manage your internal state. So this pattern becomes more likely to repeat itself. Now, self-focused attention kicks in more easily. And once it starts, it tends to sustain itself. It continues until either the gap is reduced or your attention is pulled away from yourself. Now here's where interpretation becomes critical. The emotion you experience depends on how your mind makes sense of what's happening. If that situation is interpreted as threat or danger, the pattern moves towards anxiety. If it's interpreted as loss, failure, hopelessness, it moves towards depression. So the emotional outcome is not random. It depends on your interpretation. Now, to understand why this becomes persistent, we need to look at how different parts of the mind interact. And this is where people usually start to lose track, so I'm going to slow this down for you. At a lower level in our mind, the fast automatic parts of your mind, you've learned patterns. These include thoughts, emotional reactions, and body responses. They can be triggered directly by what's happening around you, and they can run with little or no conscious involvement, right? Automatic. And importantly, these patterns are often tightly linked together. So one trigger can activate a whole chain of responses automatically. Now, at a higher level, the part of your mind you're consciously aware of, you interpret what's happening and decide what to do. But it doesn't operate independently. It's constantly interacting with those lower level patterns. And here's how one triggers the other. Let me explain that for you. Sometimes activity at the lower level, automatic, becomes strong enough to enter your awareness. And this shows up as an intrusive thought, for example, a sudden feeling or a noticeable body sensation. And when that happens, your attention gets pulled inward automatically. Now the higher level system of your mind steps in. It tries to make sense of what just appeared. It compares it to your internal standards, the ideas about yourself, what is acceptable, what needs to be controlled, right? And if there is a mismatch, it tries to respond through behavior, thinking, or shifting attention. And this is another important thing, the response depends heavily on your beliefs, especially beliefs about whether you can deal with what's happening and what you're supposed to do about it. And now you see the key pattern. Attention turns inward and thinking becomes less efficient. Your beliefs get activated and your monitoring increases, not as separate things, but as one connected pattern. And this is where monitoring or scanning for what's happening inside you becomes central. Monitoring means directing your attention inward to detect your thoughts, your sensations, or changes in your emotion. Sometimes this is deliberate because you believe internal signals are important or dangerous. Often, other times it happens automatically. It's triggered by the presence of an internal sensation. And here's the problem. The more you look for something, the more you notice it. And the more you notice it, the more significant it feels. And this is where the loop starts. Your internal events get interpreted as meaningful or dangerous. That makes you pay more attention to them. And the more you pay attention, the more you notice them, the more important or threatening they seem. I want you to think about this and take this with you today. And that's the whole pattern then becomes more sensitive to itself. Now, at other times, instead of monitoring, you get pulled into extended thinking, what we call rumination, prolonged thinking. This is where your attention shifts into analyzing what's happening internally. But this has a cost. It uses up those same limited mental resources. So awareness of everything else, internal and external, starts to drop. And now your mind begins to alternate between two modes, monitoring and analysis, right? Rumination. Both are attempts to solve the problem, but both can keep it active when your attention is too self-focused and your mental capacity is limited. And this pattern doesn't stay fixed. It changes both beliefs and automatic responses over time. In your beliefs, repeated interpretations can strengthen what you already believe or change it. You can start interpreting new experiences in a way that confirms or updates your expectations. In your automatic patterns, several things can happen. The way you interpret what's happening can increase your physical arousal, which then amplifies or dampens what you feel and notice internally. And deliberate strategies can change the intensity of what you feel. Like in some cases, shifting attention in certain ways can interrupt your ongoing patterns. And over time, repeatedly responding differently can reshape how these automatic patterns operate. So what you're dealing with is not a set of symptoms. it keeps reshaping itself based on how you respond to it. A pattern where attention, beliefs, and internal reactions all influence each other. And this is why changing thoughts alone often doesn't work, because the issue isn't just what you think, it's where your attention goes, how you respond to what you feel, and the beliefs that guide those responses. And once you see that clearly, the problem becomes more defined. It's not vague, not random, but patterned. And anything that follows a pattern can be understood. And if it can be understood, it can be changed. So the real question becomes not how to remove those thoughts or emotions, but how to change the way this pattern is being driven, especially where your attention is going. That's the next step. So remember to subscribe and turn on your notifications, and see you on the next video. Thanks.